There is an unspoken rule passed down through generations in the northern stretches of America during those endless winter nights, when a red alert blizzard rolls in. The most terrifying thing isn't the frostbite that turns skin black. It's the silence. It isn't the peaceful hush of nature falling asleep under a blanket of white. It is a deep, heavy, hungry void. They say that when white-out conditions engulf the ancient pine forests of Blackwood Mountain, the human world shrinks down to the small space inside your car. And out there, amid the swirling gray gusts, the snow starts looking for those who didn't make it home in time. The snow doesn't just cover the earth, it eats the living. My name is Thomas. I'm 46 years old. My job doesn't matter, and neither does my title. The only thing that defined me for the past 2 years was my role as the practical infrastructure guy for a broken family. My wife, Sarah, died in a horrific accident on a freezing winter afternoon 2 years ago. Ever since, our 2-story wooden home in rural Vermont became nothing more than a quiet brick tomb. I never learned the language of emotional connection, so I didn't know how to talk to my daughter, Lily, a 13-year-old girl who locked her heart behind heavy bedroom doors and single-word answers. The only thread keeping me tethered to fatherhood was the weekly carpool. Whether it was school runs or weekend trips, I always took the wheel. I handled the mechanics, checking tire pressure, topping up fuel, mounting snow chains, and mixing the heavy-duty winter washer fluid that wouldn't freeze at -30 degrees. I buried myself in logistics because it was the only thing I knew how to fix. It gave me a desperate sense of usefulness in a world that had otherwise collapsed. This weekend trip had been planned a month in advance. It was supposed to be a short getaway to a secluded cabin at the summit of Blackwood Mountain, a place with no cell service. No city noise, just a wood-burning fireplace and hundreds of miles of dense pine forest. Joining Lily and me were 3 close friends. First was Leah, a sharp but sensitive 12-year-old who constantly wore her late father's vintage film camera around her neck. Next was Craig, a hyperactive 10-year-old who could talk uninterrupted for 4 hours about football, Minecraft, or creepy urban legends he'd found on Reddit that morning. Craig didn't need a conversational partner, he just needed an audience. And finally, there was Manny. Manny was an enigma. The 13-year-old wasn't shy. Shy kids want to talk but can't. Manny simply chose quietness. He always claimed the back row, sitting straight with his hands flat on his knees, staring intently out the rear window. His father was a cold, quiet man who never said more than 2 words to me during drop-offs. There was something about Manny that gave me the uncomfortable impression he knew far more about the world than any kid his age should. "Dad, are you sure we're still going?" Lily asked from the front passenger seat. Her voice was thin, eyes glued to the window as dark clouds gathered above us. I prepped the Ford Explorer thoroughly. "Love," I replied, adjusting the heater to 72 degrees while keeping my voice steady. The news warned of a blizzard, but we'll reach the cabin on Blackwood Mountain before the thick of it hits. We have thermal blankets, emergency rations, flashlights, and 2 spare gas cans in the trunk. Everything is under control. Mom used to say you think everything in life can be fixed with a torque wrench. Lily murmured softly. It wasn't meant as an insult, but it pricked my chest like a cold needle all the same. The Explorer rumbled off the main interstate and merged onto a winding 2-lane B road cutting through the semi-rural valleys of Vermont. Endless white fields stretched toward the horizon, punctuated by black pines standing like towering sentinels in the dusk. At first, the snow was light. Delicate flakes drifted down, wiped away rhythmically by the windshield blades. Inside the cabin, Craig broke the silence with his loud, excited chatter. "Hey, do you guys know about Blackwood Valley?" Craig blurted out from the middle row. "They say back in the 1940s, it used to be a mining town. During the winter of '40, a weird blizzard hit that lasted 3 straight weeks. When the state police finally plowed their way in, all 200 townspeople were gone. No blood, no struggle, just open doors, hot food still steaming on kitchen tables, and footstep tracks leading out into the snow that just abruptly stopped in the middle of nowhere." "Craig, stop making up stupid stories," Leah grumbled, the mechanical click-clack of her camera shutter firing as she tried to photograph the passing trees. "My mom told me those legends are just made up by tourist traps." I'm not making it up. Craig protested. They call the phenomenon the whiteout. When the snowfall gets thick enough, the barrier between our world and the empty space thins out. The snow doesn't just cover the road, it erases it. And once the road is gone, the next thing it eats is whoever is still driving on it. I glanced into the rearview mirror. Manny was still sitting in the very back, hands flat on his knees. He hadn't joined in, but when Craig uttered the phrase, "white out," I saw Manny's fingers twitch slightly. His dark eyes remained fixed on the rear window, watching the storm gather behind us like thick black ink. An hour later, as we climbed deeper into the mountain range, the weather turned catastrophic. The snow stopped falling vertically, driven by gale-force winds whipping through the valley. It slammed horizontally against the windshield like thrown buckets of white sand. Visibility collapsed from 50 yards to 30, then rapidly down to less than 10 feet. The wipers labored heavily, making a wet squeak slap sound as they fought off the slush building up at the base of the glass. The world outside the SUV vanished completely. No trees, no road markers, no sky. Everything dissolved into a swirling, disorienting vortex of churning gray-white. Pure blindness. "Dad," Lily's voice shook. She had put her phone away minutes ago. "Are we still on the road?" My hands tightened on the steering wheel, cold sweat slicking my palms despite the blasting heat inside. "We're fine, sweetheart. The turnoff for Blackwood Mountain should be right ahead, near the old wooden bridge over the creek. I've driven this route a dozen times." In truth, I couldn't see a thing. I was driving on muscle memory and sheer stubbornness. By my calculations, the mountain pass turnoff should have appeared 5 minutes ago. I glanced down at the dashboard. The GPS screen flickered violently. The small blue icon representing our car spun in circles before a harsh red prompt flashed across the display. "Satellite signal lost." "It's fine," I lied smoothly, trying to keep the panic out of my voice for the kids. Thick storm clouds block GPS signals in the mountains all the time. I'll just track our mileage on the odometer. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 15. The turnoff for Blackwood Mountain never came. The B road was supposed to incline steeply, yet the Explorer continued gliding along a completely flat stretch of pavement. The tall pine trees on either side were gone, replaced by low, withered shrubs bent double under the weight of the snow, looking eerily like skeletal human arms reaching out from the drifts. "Wait, didn't we just pass that sign?" Leah asked from the back, her voice tightening with dread. I slowed the vehicle down and cracked my driver's side window an inch. A knife-like gust of sub-zero wind slashed into the cabin. Carrying the deafening howl of the blizzard, illuminated by my headlights stood a rusted, bent metal road sign, twisted at a 45-degree angle. Its text had long eroded away, save for a jagged red streak painted down its side. I remembered passing that exact same sign 7 minutes ago. I had mentally noted it as a marker. "That's impossible," I muttered under my breath. I cranked the wheel hard to the left, pulling a full U-turn. The Ford Explorer groaned, its heavy winter tires biting into the snow as we reversed direction. I decided to pull back out to the main highway. Accepting defeat and heading back to the city was better than getting stranded in a class red blizzard. We retraced our path, following the deep tire tracks we had just carved into the fresh powder. If my tracking was correct, we would hit the pine tree section within 10 minutes. 5 minutes in, our own tire tracks abruptly vanished. It wasn't because fresh snow had buried them. A deep tread mark doesn't flatten out into untouched powder in a matter of minutes. The ground ahead was pristine, smooth, and unbroken, as if no vehicle had driven over it in decades. And right by the shoulder, stood the bent, rusted metal sign with the red streak. We hadn't turned around, or rather, the road had folded in on itself, bending geometry into a seamless, closed loop. "Dad," Lily's knuckles turned white as she grabbed the overhead handle. "Where are we?" I couldn't answer. My throat felt like sand. I pressed the accelerator, forcing the SUV faster. 10 yards, 50 yards, 100 yards. The bent sign flashed past the headlights again. The same withered, reaching shrubs. We were driving in a straight line, but the space around us was warping into a circle. "Mr. Thomas," Manny's flat, unnerving voice cut through the cabin from the back row. It was the first time he had spoken the entire trip. His tone lacked any childhood panic, it was clinical, cold, and absolute. "You should stop the car now." I met his eyes in the mirror. Manny wasn't looking at me. His face was pressed against the rear glass. His eyes wide and unblinking. "Why?" I swallowed hard, my voice raspy. "Because it's walking behind us," Manny said quietly. "Ever since you tried to turn the car around, it stepped out of the snow." A suffocating silence descended on the Ford Explorer. The howling wind outside suddenly sounded like the guttural breathing of something massive waiting in the dark. Craig stopped crying. Leah stopped snapping photos. Lily turned to me, her eyes wide with terror. I forced myself to look into the center rearview mirror. At first, I saw nothing but the deep red halo cast by my taillights onto the swirling white storm. Then, the snow behind us parted. 30 yards back, standing dead center in the beam of red light, was a figure. It stood in the middle of the road, tall, narrow, completely motionless. The red glow cast a long, distorted shadow behind it, a shadow that bent at angles no human skeleton could ever form. Our weekend trip had barely begun, but the road home had just been erased. The weekend escape, white out. Chapter 2. The Shape of the Void. The single primitive instinct of a practical man faced with a threat is action. When that silhouette appeared in the red halo behind the car, I didn't allow my brain to process what it was. In a gray-white blizzard thousands of feet up a mountain, where temperatures could freeze lung tissue in minutes, any paranoid speculation would mean death. I slammed my foot down on the accelerator. The Explorer's V6 engine roared to life. The 4 heavy winter tires spun, bit into the thick powder, and launched the SUV forward. "Everyone stay down. Hold on to something," I shouted, both hands gripping the wheels so hard my knuckles turned white, adrenaline flooding my spine. The SUV tore through the white storm like an arrow. But the road ahead remained a straight, endless line. The speedometer needle swept past 50, 60, then 70 miles per hour. At this speed on an icy surface, a single wrong turn of the wheel would throw the 2-ton vehicle straight down the valley. But I had no choice. Survival instincts screamed in my head, "Create distance. Get away from that thing." Inside the cabin, the silence of the kids was far more terrifying than the roar of the engine. Craig curled up in the middle row, clutching a headrest pillow, his face completely drained of color. Leah held her mechanical camera tight in her lap, staring wide-eyed at the gray snow streaking past the side windows. Lily sat rigid in the passenger seat, staring at the dashboard, her rapid breath fogging up a patch on the windshield. Only Manny remained unmoved. Through the center mirror, I saw him keeping the same posture. He didn't lean back, he didn't grab the handle. Manny pressed his forehead against the rear glass, his eyes as still as a frozen lake, tracking every yard of distance between us and the shape in the storm. 5 minutes passed. The gas needle dropped at an abnormal rate, but our speed didn't lessen. Is it still back there, Manny?" Leah asked, her voice raspy, torn apart by fear. Manny didn't turn around. "It's not chasing us." I let out a long breath, my chest unclenching slightly. "I told you, it was just an optical illusion. Light reflecting off snow columns. When the weather gets this bad." "It's not chasing us," Manny interrupted, his flat voice cutting through my explanation like glass. "Because it doesn't need to run. We're driving right back to it." His words dropped into the cabin like a heavy block of ice. Before I could process what he meant, 20 yards ahead of our hood, the yellow beams of the headlights slammed into an obstacle. A bent, rusted metal road sign, twisted at a 45-degree angle, with a long red streak painted down its side. I gnashed my teeth, jerking the wheel to avoid it. The SUV skidded on the ice, metal and rubber emitting a sickening screech against the frozen asphalt before regaining traction. But as the headlights stabilized, cutting through the void ahead, it was standing there. Not behind us, it was right in the middle of the road, directly ahead of our hood, less than 15 yards away. I slammed on the brakes. The abs pulsed violently beneath my foot, shaking my leg with rapid, automatic pumps. The Ford Explorer skidded, snow spraying up against the sides like white waves. The vehicle came to a dead stop less than 5 yards from the figure. The engine sputtered, shuddered violently, and died. Total, suffocating silence descended. The headlights remained lit, two strong yellow beams cutting through the gray storm, illuminating the thing standing directly in front of us. Now, with less than a few paces separating us, my brain could no longer lie to itself with logical excuses about refractions or illusions. It was a human-like shape, but the resemblance ended at the concept. It was impossibly tall, easily over 8 feet, yet absurdly narrow. Like a photograph of a man stretched out vertically by software. A ragged, ash-gray coat draped down to its knees. But the material wasn't fabric. It resembled rotting, dry, grayish hide that blended seamlessly with the swirling snow around it. Most horrific were its limbs. Its arms hung limp at its sides, unnaturally long, reaching far past its knees. Its fingers weren't curled, they were extended straight, pointing down at the snow like sharpened wooden stakes, each finger a completely different length. Its head was tilted sharply to the side, a 90-degree angle no human cervical spine could ever endure. And it had no face. Where eyes, a nose, and a mouth should have been, there was only a smooth, pale, stretched slab of skin across an elongated skull. No wrinkles, no nostrils, no eyes, just a blank, lifeless void. Snow fell heavily all around it, but not a single flake touched its body. The white specks hovered within a few inches of the figure before veering away, falling around it in a dry, perfectly clean circle on the ground, as if its very presence was a glitch in reality where the laws of nature failed to apply. "Dad," Lily whispered, so softly it was almost soundless. She drew her knees up to her chest, staring at the figure through the glass. What is that?" "Everyone, stay inside," I rasped, my voice trembling. "Lock all the doors." I reached out and hit the central lock button. The sharp clack of the door pins resonated through the quiet cabin. That tiny sound felt like our only defense, a thin sheet of metal separating 5 human beings from the monstrosity outside. "Mr. Thomas," Manny's voice came from the middle row. He had crawled up from the back, his hands gripping my headrest. "Don't look at where its face should be." "What?" I glanced back at him. "Don't try to picture its face in your head," Manny said, his voice ice cold, eyes fixed on the floorboards. "If you try to imagine its eyes, it will know what you're thinking." Craig began to weep, unable to hold it in any longer. His quiet sobs choked in his throat as he bit into his pillow to muffle the sound. Leah's hands shook violently as she raised her camera, the lens tapping against the side window with a rapid click click click. Clack. A faint sound echoed from the front. The figure had taken a step closer. It didn't walk like a living creature. There was no muscle movement, no sound of boots stepping onto snow. It simply shifted position. In the blink of an eye, the distance between it and the hood closed from 5 yards to 3. It tilted its head to the opposite side, a precise 90-degree angle. Its long, gaunt arm rose slowly, its longest index finger, sharp as a wooden stake, pointed directly at our windshield, right where Lily and I sat. And then, right before our eyes, the Explorer's dashboard began to short-circuit. The engine light, ABS indicator, and airbag warnings flashed erratically like a cursed string of holiday lights. The speedometer needle shot to its maximum before dropping dead to 0. The 2 bright beams of our headlights dimmed. The warm yellow light was drained of life, turning a weak, sick orange, before, pop. Complete darkness swallowed the SUV. At that exact moment, the cabin heater died, the sub-zero cold of Blackwood Mountain, previously held back by the car's metal shell, rushed in through invisible cracks. My breath instantly materialized into thick white clouds in the air. "Dad, Dad," Lily screamed in the pitch black, her hands frantically reaching for mine. Her skin was as cold as ice. "I'm here, I've got you." I grabbed her hand, pulling her close to my side. In the dense darkness of the cabin, illuminated only by the faint gray reflection of the snow outside the glass, we heard a sound. It wasn't the howling wind, it was tapping. Tap, tap, tap. Rhythmic, patient. The sound didn't come from the windshield. It was coming from the side window right next to my head. The thing was standing right outside my driver's side door. The Weekend Escape, White Out. Chapter 3. The Boundary of Glass. Tap, tap, tap. The rhythmic sound against the multi-layered tempered glass was precise, delicate, and agonizingly patient. It wasn't the frantic pounding of something trying to break in, but the casual knocking of a predator that knew its prey had nowhere left to run. My entire body locked up. Every nerve ending in my brain screamed a single command: do not turn your head to the left. But human curiosity in the face of terror is a dark, inescapable trap. Slowly, agonizingly, I turned my head toward the driver's side window. Less than 4 inches away, on the other side of the glass, there was no face, only a smooth, pale slab of gray, leathery skin pressed flat against the window. The complete absence of eyes, nose, or mouth made it look like a discarded, featureless mask. A bone-chilling cold seeped straight through the glass, pressing against my temple. The condensation from my breath on the inside began to freeze into gray, feather-like frost crystals, spider webbing outward from the exact spot where its elongated finger rested on the outside. "Dad, don't look at it," Lily whimpered beside me. She was buried against my side, her entire body shaking like a leaf in a gale. I bit my lip so hard I tasted metallic blood. The sharp tang snapped my fading consciousness back into focus. Reaching down into the door pocket with a trembling hand, my fingers wrapped around the heavy, cold aluminum body of my mag light, a massive police-grade flashlight I kept in the car for emergencies. Click. I slammed the switch forward. A blinding cone of intense white LED light erupted from the torch, piercing through the cabin's suffocating darkness. With a desperate burst of reflexes, I aimed the beam straight through the driver's side window. The searing white light slammed into the featureless gray skin outside. The figure jerked violently. It wasn't in pain, it had no eyes to blind, but the reaction was like a biological reflex. A spider flinching when hit by an unexpected electric charge. It staggered back a step, its movements jerky and unnatural as it recoiled from the direct beam. "The light, it hates the light," Leah gasped from the backseat, her voice rising in sudden realization. "It doesn't hate it," Manny's voice cut through the cabin, ice cold despite the freezing air. "It just dislikes being seen clearly. The light forces it to take a defined form." I didn't care about Manny's theories right then. The moment the thing retreated a step from my door, I grabbed the ignition key with everything I had left. Crank, chug. I turned the key. The V6 engine groaned, a harsh metallic whine echoing through the frozen block. The starter motor chattered, struggling against fuel that was rapidly thickening in the sub-zero cold. Crank, chug, chug. "Start, please, just start," Craig wailed, burying his face in his hands as tears streamed down his cheeks. Outside, after its initial recoil, the tall figure regained its unnatural composure. With a fluid, stretching motion, its impossibly long arm reached upward. Its sharp, stake-like fingers drifted away from the side window and reached for the roof of the SUV. Creak, crunch. A sickening sound of groaning metal echoed directly above our heads. The fabric headliner inside the cabin bulged downward several inches. The heavy steel roof of the Ford Explorer was being crushed inward under an unfathomable weight. The metal buckling like an aluminum can under a heavy boot. "It's climbing on top of us," Leah screamed, pulling Craig into a tight embrace as they cowered in the corner of the seat. The SUV tilted heavily to the left, the suspension groaning in protest. The immense pressure from above caused the surrounding windows to flex. Tiny, spiderweb fractures began crawling from the window frames toward the centers of the glass. If the glass shattered, the -30-degree air, and whatever was on the roof, would flood inside all at once. Terrifying fear transformed into raw, desperate fury. I couldn't lose Lily. I had lost Sarah 2 years ago because I was powerless to stop fate. But tonight, on this godforsaken road, I refused to sit quietly and watch my 13-year-old daughter be consumed. "Close your eyes. All of you, cover your eyes," I roared. I stopped trying to turn the key normally. Throwing my full body weight forward, I slammed my foot down on the gas pedal, shoved the gear shifter straight into reverse, and hit the emergency starter override. The sudden surge of electrical power forced the cold fuel injectors to fire. The V6 engine let out a deafening roar. All 4 heavy winter tires spun wildly, burning rubber against the ice and filling the air with the acrid stench. The Explorer jolted backward with violent acceleration. Slam! The massive weight riding on the roof was thrown forward by sheer inertia. A heavy, gray mass crashed down onto the snow directly in front of the hood, carving a deep trench and spraying white powder across the windshield. Without hesitating for a single millisecond, I slammed the shifter into drive, floored the accelerator, and yanked the wheel to the right. The 2-ton SUV surged forward, its left wheels rolling directly over the sprawling gray form. A sickening crunch, like dozens of dry branches snapping simultaneously beneath heavy boots, echoed up through the floorboards. The vehicle bounced violently, then tore through the blinding storm, leaving behind the mangled shape in the snow. We sped through the darkness like a runaway train. The headlights flickered back to life, casting erratic beams through the swirling white. I had no idea where I was driving. The path ahead was an unbroken sheet of pristine powder. 5 minutes passed, then 10. No bent metal sign appeared. No tall figure stood in the middle of the road. There was only the howling wind outside and the ragged, desperate breathing of 5 human beings inside the cabin. Did we get away, Mr. Thomas? Leah asked, her breath forming thick white clouds in the freezing air. I didn't dare answer. I kept my eyes glued to the rearview mirror. The space behind us was filled only with the faint red glow of our taillights against the snow. Nothing was chasing us. Dad, Lily's voice trembled. She was still gripping my sleeve. Look ahead. I shifted my gaze to the front. About 30 yards ahead, the flickering headlights swept across a massive wooden structure. It was an ancient, heavy timber bridge spanning a deep mountain gorge. Dark, snow-draped beams framed the crossing, its guardrails broken and weathered. The bridge over the creek leading up Blackwood Mountain. A choked sob escaped my throat. The bridge was real. The road was no longer looping. We had broken through the spatial trap. It's the bridge, I gasped, my voice hoarse and raw. We made it through. I'm taking us straight to the cabin. There's a stone fireplace and thick log walls. We'll be safe there. I slowed down, guiding the Explorer gently onto the heavy wooden planks of the bridge. The tires hummed over the timber with a rhythmic, solid thud. The vehicle crossed the 50-yard span and touched down on the incline leading up the mountain. Pulling over to the shoulder, I shifted into park and turned around to look at the 3 kids in the back. Is everyone okay? Craig, Leah, Manny? Craig nodded, his face stained with tears. But his breathing had slowed. Leah offered a weak, trembling smile. But as my eyes swept to the very back row, the blood in my veins turned to liquid ice once again. Manny's navy blue snow jacket was sitting upright on the back seat. But inside the fabric, there was nothing. Manny was gone. The weekend escape, white out. Chapter 4. The empty seat. The fragile warmth of relief that had briefly filled the cabin shattered instantly. A suffocating, deathly silence settled over the interior of the Ford Explorer. I tore my eyes away from the mirror and turned around completely, staring at the back row. The navy blue winter jacket Manny's father had put on him before we left was still resting upright against the seat back. The sleeves draped naturally along the leather cushion. The hood held a hollow shape as if a small pair of shoulders had just been leaning there a second ago. But inside the fabric, there was only empty air. No Manny, no gray backpack. The leather seat beneath was smooth, vacant, and bone-chillingly cold, as if no human being had sat there for the entire journey. Manny, my voice came out cracked and hollow. Where's Manny? Leah turned in her seat, her eyes bulging. What? He was just sitting there. He was talking to us right when that thing hit the window. Manny, Manny, Craig yelled, scrambling over his seat back, his hands frantically waving through the empty space inside the hollow jacket. His fingers brushed against the freezing leather. He's not here. The doors didn't open. How did he get out? That was the most terrifying part. From the moment we broke through the looping road until we crossed the wooden bridge, the central door locks had remained engaged. No click of a latch. No rush of freezing wind. Yet a 13-year-old boy had vanished from a vehicle moving at 60 miles per hour. "Dad," Lily slowly turned toward me. Her face was pale, but her eyes held something darker than mere panic. It was a profound, creeping doubt. Was Manny ever actually with us? Her question dropped into the cabin like a lead weight. "What are you saying, Lily?" Leah snapped, her voice breaking under the strain. "Manny came with us from school. I saw his dad put him in the car. I was talking to him." Leah abruptly stopped. She clutched her head with both hands, her eyebrows knotting in a sudden, sharp pain. "Talking to him about what, Leah?" I demanded, staring at her through the gloom. "What did Manny say to you?" He, Leah stammered, tears streaming down her cheeks. I can't remember. I remember him sitting back there, but I don't remember a single word he said. I don't remember what color his shirt was under the jacket. Why can't I remember?" The terror mutated into something far worse, the decay of memory itself. I lunged toward the glove compartment between the front seats, snatching the printed sign-up sheet for the weekend trip that I had meticulously clipped there earlier that week. My trembling hands shone the maglite beam onto the paper. Printed in crisp black ink. Thomas Adams, driver. Lily Adams. Leah Miller. Craig Vance. The fifth line was completely blank. No Manny. No last name for his father. Not a single trace of ink proved that a boy named Manny had ever existed. "No, that's impossible," I yelled, my head spinning violently. I packed his bag myself. I greeted his dad at the school gates. I know his house on Elm Street. "Mr. Thomas," Craig whispered, his eyes glazed over. I can't remember what Manny's face looks like anymore. Did he even have eyes? "Mr. Thomas?" A wave of nausea surged up my throat. Craig's words were a grotesque beam of light cutting through my recent memories. I tried to picture Manny's face, the boy who had been sitting behind me for hours. But in my mind, his image was nothing more than a blurred silhouette, hands flat on his knees. And where his face should have been, there was only a featureless gray void. Manny hadn't been a child. Or rather, whatever had been sitting behind me wasn't human. It was a fragment of the blizzard itself, an insidious infiltration that had led us deeper into the trap. And the moment we crossed the wooden bridge, entering the true domain of Blackwood Mountain, its presence was no longer required. It had dissolved back into the void, leaving 4 living human beings trapped in the snow. Crack! A deafening splintering sound echoed from behind us. I whipped around, 50 yards back, illuminated by our red tail lights. The ancient timber bridge we had just crossed was collapsing. The massive wooden girders twisted under an invisible, crushing force, snapping like dried twigs. The entire 50-yard span plummeted into the black gorge below, dragging tons of snow and ice down with it. The roar of shattering wood and cascading rock echoed through the canyon like the guttural growl of a trap snapping shut. Our path back was gone forever. We had to keep moving. I rasped, every trace of confidence drained from my voice. The cabin is less than a mile away. We can't stay in this car. I shoved the gear lever into drive, forcing the Ford Explorer up the steep, winding incline of Blackwood Mountain. No one spoke. Craig cowered in the middle row. Leah clutched her camera like a lifeline, and Lily held onto my sleeve. The empty blue jacket sat in the back row like a silent monument, a reminder that once the whiteout decided to claim someone, it left only an empty space behind. The narrow road wound through an ancient pine forest. Towering trees stood inches from the shoulders, their snow-laden branches bending low like skeletal giants leaning in to inspect the passing car. High above, the storm howled through the canopy, sounding like 1,000 freezing whispers. 10 minutes later, the flickering headlights swept across a wide stone driveway. Emerging from the white storm stood the Blackwood cabin. It was a fortress built from half-meter-thick pine logs, featuring a steep roof buried under 2 feet of snow. Its dark stained glass windows stared out into the night, silent and imposing. "We're here," I breathed out, an overwhelming exhaustion crashing over me. I cut the engine. A heavy silence enveloped the cabin. But this time, it felt like the stillness of a sanctuary. I grabbed the brass cabin key from my coat pocket and turned to the 3 children. "Listen to me. When I unlock the doors, I want all 3 of you to run straight to the porch. I'll open the front door immediately. Don't look back. Don't stop for anything. Understood?" They nodded in unison. I took a deep breath and hit the lock release. Clack. I threw open the driver's side door and stepped out into knee-deep snow. The -30-degree air struck my face like a physical blow, burning every exposed patch of skin. "Run! Go!" I yelled against the roaring wind. Lily, Leah, and Craig scrambled out, wading through the deep drifts toward the wooden steps of the cabin. I charged right behind them, the brass key ready in my trembling palm. We scrambled onto the covered porch, shielded slightly from the snowfall. I jammed the key into the heavy iron lock of the solid oak front door. Click, turn. The rusted deadbolt gave way with a heavy clunk. I slammed my weight against the wood, pushing the heavy door open. The smell of dry pine, stale dust, and trapped warmth rushed out to meet us. Inside, get inside. I shoved the kids into the pitch-black living room, then threw my shoulder against the heavy oak door, forcing it shut against the wind. Slam. I slid the iron security bolts into place. The solid metal clank reverberated through the stone entryway, sealing out the howling storm outside. We were inside the cabin. I slid down the back of the door, collapsing onto the hardwood floor as I gasped for air. I raised the maglite, sweeping its powerful beam across the vast, vaulted living room. Rustic leather couches, a massive stone fireplace, and exposed wooden beams met the light. Everything looked secure, an impenetrable fortress against the mountain. "Dad," Lily's voice drifted from the wooden table in the center of the room. "What is it, sweetie?" I panted, pushing myself up. Lily was standing by the long dining table, the flashlight beam illuminating her pale face. She wasn't looking at me. She was staring down at the tabletop. Sitting on the dusted wood were 4 mugs of hot cocoa, steam still gently rising into the freezing air. And right beside the 4 steaming cups lay the cabin's open guest book. Written across the open page in fresh, wet, crimson ink was a single line of text: "The weekend escape, white out." Chapter 5. The still warm cocoa. The fresh red ink glistened under the bright LED beam of my maglite like an open, weeping wound. 4 ceramic mugs sat in a neat, symmetrical row across the dining table, delicate spirals of steam rising into the freezing air of the living room. I stood frozen at the entryway, my back still pressed flat against the heavy iron bolts of the front door. The fleeting sense of safety offered by the thick log walls instantly shattered into 1,000 jagged pieces. Mr. Thomas," Craig whimpered, taking a shaky step backward. His eyes were wide, fixed on the steaming cups. Who made those? Is there someone else living here?" I didn't answer. Slowly, I advanced toward the wooden table, raising the flashlight higher. The vaulted living room was drowned in deep shadow, save for the old leather couches, a dust-covered grand piano tucked into a dark corner, and the cold stone hearth. No footprints marked the dusty floorboards. No sound came from the hallways. There was only the sweet, heavy scent of hot chocolate mingled with the bitter smell of fresh, wet ink and the biting chill of the mountain air. I extended a trembling hand and lightly touched the rim of one mug. It was warm, a real, comforting warmth that felt terrifyingly out of place against the sub-zero temperature inside the unheated cabin. "Don't touch it," Leah gasped, pulling Craig behind my back. "Mr. Thomas, someone was here right before us. Or someone is hiding inside this house." "There's no one here," Lily said softly. I turned to look at my daughter. Lily stood right beside the table, staring down at the red writing in the guest book. She didn't look panicked like Craig or Leah. Her face held eerie, flat calmness that sent a cold shiver down my spine, a dread deeper than anything the blizzard outside could produce. "Lily, step back behind me," I instructed, pulling her away as I raised the flashlight like a club. "All of you, stay right here by the door. I'm going to check the ground floor." I gripped the heavy aluminum casing of the maglite and moved stealthily across the room. My boots produced loud, echoing creaks against the aging pine floorboards. I checked every door on the first floor, a cramped kitchen smelling of rust and dried herbs, a bathroom lined with freezing porcelain tiles, a wood storage pantry filled with dry logs. All were empty. Thick cobwebs hung undisturbed across the door frames, and a layer of dust coated the shelves. There were no footprints anywhere, except the slushy, melting trails left by our own boots. If no one was inside, who wrote that line? Who poured 4 hot cups of cocoa? And most unnerving of all, why 4? There were 4 of us standing in this room. Myself, Lily, Leah, and Craig. But if you counted Manny, the boy who had vanished on the road, our original group was 5. Were the 4 mugs meant for the 4 surviving children? Or were they meant for 4 victims? Mr. Thomas, Leah's panicked voice called out from the living room, cutting through my spiraling thoughts. I hurried back. Leah was standing near the table, pointing a trembling finger at her camera hanging around her neck. Her hand shook so violently that the leather strap rattled against her zipper. What is it, Leah? I was checking the digital preview on my camera. Leah stammered, her face pale under the flashlight beam. From when we were on the looping road, I snapped a photo of the back seat. I clearly remember aiming the lens at Craig and Manny. Let me see, I said, taking the camera from her hands. Leah pressed the playback button on the small LCD screen. The image lit up. It showed the dim, shadowed interior of the Ford Explorer, illuminated erratically by the dashboard lights. On the left side of the frame, Craig was cowering against his pillow, his face contorted in terror. But on the right side of the photo, where Manny should have been sitting in his blue jacket, there was only a blurred, static-filled patch of snow visible through the window. When I zoomed in on that empty space, the digital artifacts and noise formed a terrifying pattern. Dozens of thin, elongated, needle-like fingers of gray mist hovered right over the back of Craig's neck. It wasn't a boy sitting in that seat. It was a cluster of shadowy tendrils reaching out from the storm, poised inches away from the boy's spine. It was in the car with us the whole time. Craig whispered, collapsing onto his knees as his mental endurance broke. He buried his face in his hands, weeping uncontrollably. We're never going home. The snow is going to eat us. Craig, get up, I commanded, grabbing his shoulders and lifting him to his feet. Letting panic take over now would destroy whatever chance we had left. Listen to me. This cabin is built from solid pine logs with walls half a meter thick. We have iron bolts on the doors. Whatever is out there cannot get in. We are going to build a fire in the hearth, warm up, and wait for daylight. I guided the 3 children over to the massive stone fireplace in the center of the room. I grabbed several dry pine logs from the rack, arranged them over the grate, and struck a match. FWWsh. A bright, orange flame erupted, licking at the dry bark and sending up a comforting, crackling shower of sparks. The radiant heat began to push back the freezing air, casting a warm, flickering glow over the leather couches and driving the deep shadows back into the corners. I picked up the 4 mugs of cocoa, carried them into the kitchen sink, and poured them down the drain without looking back. I slammed the guest book shut and flipped it face down on the table. Rest here, I told them, spreading heavy wool blankets across the floor near the hearth. I'll keep watch. First thing at dawn, I'll use the emergency radio in the car to signal for help. Exhaustion finally overruled terror. Craig and Leah curled up beneath the thick wool blankets, their bodies spent from hours of relentless horror. Within minutes, their heavy, uneven breathing signaled they had drifted into a fitful, restless sleep. Only Lily remained awake. She sat with her back against the side of the sofa, staring blankly into the dancing flames of the fireplace. I sat down on the floor beside her, draping a spare blanket over her shoulders. How are you holding up, sweetie? I asked softly, my voice raspy. Lily didn't look at me. The firelight flickered across her sharp features, casting dramatic shadows over her pale face. Dad, Lily murmured, her voice crystal clear yet unnervingly cold. Do you remember the song Mom used to hum when she washed the dishes? My heart skipped a beat. A sharp ache tightened in my chest. Lily, I'm sorry. For the past 2 years, I've tried so hard to remember, but I just can't recall the melody. I was so focused on fixing things, on managing the house. Mom never hummed. Dad, Lily said, turning her eyes to meet mine. Her dark eyes were completely dry, devoid of tears or warmth. Mom never hummed while doing the dishes. Lily repeated, her words falling like heavy, frozen stones. That was Leah's mom. You used to listen to Leah's mom talk when she dropped Leah off. You never actually listened to mom. You just listened to whatever made you feel like a competent, structured father. I stared at my daughter, my throat suddenly dry, unable to produce a single word. And do you know what the most terrifying part of tonight is? Dad? Lily whispered, raising a pale finger and pointing it straight at my chest. You think you're saving us from the storm, but you don't even realize that we stopped breathing a long time ago. Creak, creak. A sharp, heavy sound echoed from the wooden staircase leading up to the second floor. It wasn't the wind outside. It was footsteps. Slow, deliberate, heavy boots dragging across the floorboards upstairs, steadily approaching the top of the stairs that led down into the living room. The weekend escape, white out. Chapter 6. The report beneath the snow. Creak, creak. The second floor wooden floorboards groaned beneath a heavy weight. The sound was measured, agonizingly deliberate, like the slow pendulum of a grandfather clock in an abandoned house. I scrambled to my feet, clutching the heavy mag light as my blood turned to ice. Lily's chilling words still echoed in my ears. You don't even realize that we stopped breathing a long time ago. I looked back at the sofa. Lily was still sitting there, the wool blanket draped over her shoulders. She stared at me with quiet, unblinking eyes, devoid of any emotion. Beside her, Craig and Leah remained curled up under their covers, their breath forming faint white clouds in the freezing air before the hearth. Pull yourself together, Thomas. You're the adult. You have to protect the kids. I forced the thought into my mind, desperate to dispel the creeping insanity gnawing at my brain. Taking slow, cautious steps, I approached the wooden staircase leading to the second floor. The beam from my mag light sliced through the gloom, illuminating the gray pine steps. Dust motes floated in the light like tiny, suspended snowflakes. Creak. The footsteps stopped right at the second floor landing. The door to the master bedroom stood ajar by a few inches. The darkness inside was as thick as pitch. Who's up there? I yelled, my voice raw and echoing across the vast living room. I'm armed. Step out right now. Silence answered. Only the howling blizzard outside battered the timber roof, sounding like an enraged beast. I swallowed hard and placed my boot on the first step. Creak. The second step. Creak. Every movement felt like descending into an open grave. The icy chill from the wooden banister seeped through my leather gloves, biting deep into my bones. I reached the landing. The master bedroom door sat directly in front of me. With a sudden, desperate kick, I slammed my boot into the wood. Bang! The door swung back against the stone wall. I raised the flashlight instantly, sweeping the harsh beam across the space. The bedroom was empty. An old double bed with a faded quilt, a massive oak wardrobe with closed doors, and a bay window overlooking the ravine behind the cabin. No intruder, no monstrous creature. Except, lying right in the center of the wooden floor, was an open, weathered brown leather briefcase. Yellow documents and newspaper clippings were scattered around it. Some were crumpled, others stained with dark, dried brownish spots. Slowly, I knelt down on the cold floor, lowering the flashlight. They were police accident reports and local Vermont newspaper clippings. With a trembling hand, I picked up a clipping featuring a photograph of a crushed, unrecognizable SUV at the bottom of a ravine. The headline was printed in bold, black lettering. Blackwood Mountain blizzard tragedy. Carpool accident leaves 4 children and driver missing. My eyes widened as I read the date, December 12, 2024. Exactly 2 years ago. My chest constricted so tightly I couldn't draw air into my lungs. I frantically scrambled through the remaining papers under the flashing beam. Vermont State Police report, on December 12, 2024. A Ford Explorer carrying Thomas Adams, 46. Lily Adams, 13. Leah Miller, 12. Craig Vance, 10. And Emmanuel, Manny, Santos, 13, plunged off the wooden bridge into Blackwood Ravine during a Class Red blizzard. Scene analysis. The vehicle was crushed beneath 10 feet of snow. Rescuers recovered driver Thomas Adams, alive but comatose with severe traumatic brain injury. The 4 children were never recovered. Only Emmanuel Santos's shredded jacket was found pinned to the timber wreckage. Investigation summary. Thomas Adams suffered severe brain trauma and hypothermia. He has been maintained on life support at Vermont General Hospital for 2 years in a persistent vegetative state. No, this is impossible, I screamed, scattering the papers into the air. This is a sick joke. Who is playing this joke? I lunged toward the tall oak wardrobe in the corner and yanked the mirror-lined doors open. The flashlight beam struck the reflection in the full-length mirror. The man staring back at me wasn't a healthy 46-year-old father. It was a ghastly, waxen face, stitched together with jagged, gruesome surgical scars stretching from forehead to chin. My eyes were sunken, gray, and completely hollow, and wrapped around my throat was a clear plastic tracheostomy tube connected straight into my windpipe, weeping a thin yellow fluid. I wasn't on a weekend trip. I had never left that car 2 years ago. The Ford Explorer had plunged into the ravine the moment it crossed the wooden bridge on that fateful Wednesday in 2024. For 2 years, my body had laid in a hospital bed attached to life support, while my mind remained trapped in an endless, paranoid hallucination, a loop where I constantly reenacted the carpool, constantly tried to fix the car, trying to be the perfect father to hide a horrifying truth. I was the one who drove the car off the bridge and killed my daughter and 3 other children. Crack. A deafening snap echoed from the ground floor below. I spun around, sprinting down the stairs. In the living room, the fire in the stone hearth had died out instantly. The room was plunged into a cold, suffocating gray gloom. The 4 cups of cocoa on the dining table had turned into 4 small ceramic urns filled with bone-white ashes. Leah and Craig were no longer sitting beneath their blankets. They stood upright in the middle of the room, drenched in water, their clothes shredded and caked in ice. Half of Craig's face was crushed, and Leah's neck was bent at a sickening, impossible angle. And Lily, my 13-year-old daughter, stood right before the front door. The heavy oak door had swung wide open. The white blizzard outside was pouring into the room, coating the floorboards in a thick layer of snow. "Dad," Lily turned to face me. Her face was deathly pale. Thick trails of dark, frozen blood running from her forehead down her collar. "It's time to wake up. You can't keep us trapped in your dream forever." Behind Lily, standing on the snow-covered porch amidst the swirling storm, the towering, faceless gray shape with long, stake-like limbs waited silently. It wasn't an urban legend monster. It wasn't a mountain beast. It was death. It was the embodiment of the whiteout, the entity that arrives to shepherd souls trapped in psychological loops back to where they belong. Manny had vanished first because he was the first to die in the ravine. The 4 cups of cocoa were 4 urns of ash, and Blackwood Mountain was the boundary between life and death that my shattered mind had erected over 2 agonizing years. The tall gray silhouette extended its impossibly long arm. Its stake-like fingers gently closed around the hands of Craig, Leah, and Lily. "No, Lily, don't go," I sobbed, collapsing onto the floor, my hands frantically reaching out. I'm sorry I didn't drive carefully. I'm sorry I didn't listen to Mom. Don't leave me." Lily smiled, a bright, peaceful smile, the only smile I had seen on her face since the day Sarah died. "You aren't leaving us, Dad." Lily's voice drifted gently through the fading gale. "You drove us a very long way. Now, let us go home." The tall gray shape led the 3 children backward into the blinding white storm. A brilliant, searing silver light erupted from the blizzard, consuming the silhouette, consuming the children, and erasing the Blackwood cabin into nothingness. The weekend escape, white out. Chapter 7. The beep in the void. The blinding silver light swallowed the 3 children, erased the ancient pine trees, and crushed the Blackwood cabin into drapes of gray mist. The -30-degree cold of the Vermont Valley vanished, along with the howling blizzard tearing through the roof. Everything dissolved into a featureless, pitch-gray vacuum, a timeless, shapeless void. I collapsed forward. The pine floorboards beneath my feet dissolved, replaced by a weightless sensation of floating through thick fog. My hands waved uselessly through the emptiness, desperate to grab a sleeve, a strand of hair, or anything belonging to Lily. Lily, Lily, I screamed, but the sound that emerged from my throat was no longer a human voice. It was merely a raspy, broken hiss of air escaping a narrow slit. Beep, beep, beep. A new sound pierced the gray emptiness. It wasn't the crackle of dry logs in the hearth, nor the scrape of snow against a windshield. It was a rhythmic, metallic, dry, and sterile pulse, an unyielding beat echoing once every second and a half. Beep, beep, beep. Along with that rhythm, excruciating pain flooded back. It wasn't the bone-deep chill of freezing weather. It was an internal, tearing agony. My entire chest felt crushed beneath a boulder. My skull throbbed with every pulse of my blood, a crushing pressure squeezing the nerves behind my eyes. With every beat, an agonizing electric shock shot down my spine to my toes. I forced my eyes open. The white blizzard outside transformed into a sterile, whitewashed ceiling. Harsh fluorescent tubes burned into my retinas, creating blurred, blinding halos. The fragrant scent of dry pine was completely replaced by the pungent stench of bleach, medical disinfectant, and rubbing alcohol. A soft plastic tube was wedged deep into my throat, pumping dry, mechanical air into my heavily damaged lungs. Dozens of blue and red wires were taped to my chest, connected to a flickering cardiac monitor displaying green text, heart rate, 52 BPM. I was lying in an electric hospital bed. Dr. Mitchell, room 402 is responding, a woman's voice yelled right beside my ear. The rustle of a white lab coat brushed past my blurry field of vision. Urgent footsteps rushed into the room. The heart monitor began to beat frantically as my heart rate spiked to 70. Then 80. Thomas, Mr. Adams, can you hear me? A middle-aged man with wire-rimmed glasses and a dark blue coat leaned down, shining a penlight directly into my left pupil. If you can hear me, try to blink twice, Thomas. The beam of the medical flashlight struck my eye, and that intense white light instantly morphed into the two flickering headlights of the Ford Explorer in the snowstorm. In a terrifying flash, my consciousness was dragged back into the B road. I wasn't in a hospital bed. I was trapped inside the crushed SUV at the bottom of a snowy ravine. The metal roof was crushed down inches from my forehead. The windshield was shattered into thousands of tiny ice shards embedded deep in my face. Fresh blood from a massive head wound flowed down, freezing into dark red streaks across the steering wheel. And in the back row, inside the vehicle crushed under 10 feet of snow on that night of December 12, 2024, there were no conversations about Minecraft. No mechanical click-clack of a camera shutter. Only 3 small, lifeless bodies lying amid the twisted steel wreckage. Craig was slumped over the seatback, his backpack pinning him down. Leah had been impaled by a metal beam, her hands still clutching her camera with its shattered screen. And Lily, my 13-year-old daughter, lay in the front passenger seat, eyes open wide, staring straight up through a gap in the metal roof where white snowflakes drifted down, coating her cold, motionless face. That was the real crash site. No monster had appeared to devour the children. No supernatural blizzard had bent the road into a loop. The only thing that killed those 4 children was my own stubborn arrogance. On that afternoon, desperate to prove I was a competent, perfect father, I had ignored the class red blizzard warnings on the radio. I hadn't turned back when I saw the ice forming at the Hammerwich Junction. I had driven too fast on the incline, losing traction, sliding off the timber bridge, and dragging 4 innocent lives down into the abyss with me. Manny had died instantly upon impact. Craig and Leah succumbed within 10 minutes from traumatic injuries and hypothermia. And Lily had stared at me with those desperate, terrified eyes for 20 long minutes before the last trace of warmth left her body at the bottom of the ravine. The entire weekend trip I had just experienced was nothing more than a grotesque coping hallucination constructed by my damaged brain during 2 years in a persistent vegetative state. A cruel defense mechanism to flee from an unbearable truth. I was the killer. He's going into neurogenic shock. Heart rate is at 140. Administer 10 milligrams diazepam immediately. Dr. Mitchell shouted across the ICU room. An icy needle pierced the muscle of my arm. The chemical rush flooded my bloodstream, rapidly dimming the horrifying visions of the crash 2 years ago. The heart monitor slowed. The hospital ceiling snapped back into focus. I lay there, hot tears streaming uncontrollably from the corners of my eyes, flowing over the thick, raised surgical scars on my face and soaking the white bedsheets. The breathing tube in my trachea prevented me from making a sound. I could only produce weak, rattling gasps as my chest rose and fell with the ventilator. The door to the ICU room clicked open. A woman dressed in elegant black attire, her face gaunt and pale with dark circles under her eyes, stepped inside. Leah's mother. Behind her stood Craig's parents, and the quiet, stoic man, Manny's father. They gathered around my bed. There was no explosive rage, no shouting or cursing. Over 2 long years, grief had worn them down into quiet shadows. They stared at the driver who had just woken up from a 2-year coma with a complex mix of emotions, resentment intertwined with profound, agonizing pity. "You're awake, Thomas," Leah's mother spoke, her voice thin as paper. "The doctors told us today was the day they were going to turn off the life support machines if you didn't show brain activity." I looked at Manny's father. The man who had never spoken more than 2 words to me back then stepped closer to the bed. He raised his rough, calloused hand and gently rested it on my trembling shoulder. A heavy weight, yet filled with a quiet, belated forgiveness. "It wasn't entirely your fault, Thomas," Manny's father whispered, a single tear rolling down his weathered cheek. "That storm. All of us made the mistake of letting the kids get into that car." I closed my eyes, tears continuously flowing. If this was reality, if I had truly woken up from the hallucination, then why was the -30-degree chill still brushing lightly against my temple? Tap, tap, tap. A faint, rhythmic tapping echoed right inside room 402. It wasn't the heart monitor. The sound came from the double-paned glass window of the 4th-floor ICU, outside of which a fierce 2026 winter blizzard was raging. I slowly turned my head to the left, pressed against the frosted glass of the 4th-floor window. A smooth, featureless, pale gray slab of skin was staring directly at me. Its impossibly long arm rose, its stake-like index finger pointing straight at the tracheostomy tube in my neck. It wasn't an illusion of my coma. The whiteout had come to the hospital to claim its final victim. The weekend escape, whiteout. Chapter 8. Frost on the 4th-floor glass. Tap, tap, tap. The soft knocking against the 4th-floor reinforced window pane echoed between the steady, rhythmic beeps of the heart monitor. The entirety of room 402 seemed to fall into a weightless, suspended vacuum. Dr. Mitchell continued adjusting the dosage on the IV pump, completely oblivious. Leah's mother stood head bowed at the foot of the bed, while Manny's father had just pulled his calloused hand back. Not a single person in the room turned to look toward the window. They couldn't hear it. Only I, a man who had just dragged 1 foot out of the grave, could perceive the sinister frequency of that tapping. Outside the double-paned window, amidst the swirling white fury consuming the city streetlights 15 meters below, the tall gray silhouette hovered in midair. It required no ledge or foothold, it simply stood in the open void like a sharp, dark gray ink stroke tearing through the blizzard's canvas. Its flat, featureless slab of skin was pressed firmly against the glass. A creeping layer of frost spread outward from where its needle-like fingers made contact, feathering across the pane. It isn't here to attack me. A cold, razor-sharp realization crystallized in my mind. It's here to collect what's left. For 2 agonizing years, my physical body had lain tethered to this hospital bed, kept artificially tethered to the waking world by chemical drips and electronic algorithms. But my soul had remained pinned beneath 10 feet of snow in the ravine with the 4 children. By forcing myself awake, I had broken the natural order of the whiteout. I had abandoned Lily, Leah, Craig, and Manny on the other side of the threshold, returning to a hollow shell. And the whiteout never accepts a deficit. "Thomas, what's happening?" Dr. Mitchell glanced sharply at the vital signs monitor. My heart rate was plunging, dropping precipitously from 80 down toward 40. "Check his oxygen line. He's going into acute respiratory failure." Alarm tones shattered the room's quiet as the monitors began to scream. A nurse rushed forward, plugging an emergency syringe into the injection port on my wrist. Yet I no longer felt the cold bite of the medication. The sub-zero chill from outside had breached the double-paned glass, flooding the ICU room. The white hospital sheets beneath my back began to stiffen into frost. My breath, passing through the plastic tracheostomy tube, materialized into delicate ice crystals that drifted down onto my chest. Thomas, Leah's mother, stepped closer, her face flickering under the unstable fluorescent lights overhead. "If you can hear me, please rest easy. The children, we buried them together on the hill behind town. They aren't lonely." The hill behind town. A true, uncorrupted memory flared in my mind. That quiet hillside overlooked the frozen river in winter. The very place where my wife, Sarah, had been laid to rest 2 years prior. For 2 years, I had constructed an elaborate carpool hallucination to delude myself into believing I was still protecting the kids. That I was still the meticulous father handling every piece of infrastructure. But the agonizing truth was that I had imprisoned those children inside my nightmare, forcing them to wander as ghosts alongside my guilt. I looked back at the fourth-floor window. The gray silhouette outside was no longer tapping. Its impossibly long, stake-like fingers pressed hard against the glass. Crack. A spiderweb fracture blossomed in the center of the pane. No howling wind rushed into the room, only a thin, silver stream of frost mist slipped through the fissure, crawling across the ceiling like thousands of tiny ice spiders. The mist descended, hovering directly above my chest. And from within that silver mist, a tiny hand reached out. It was wearing a pink wool mitten with frayed edges, the very mitten Lily wore every winter. "Dad." Lily's voice didn't travel through my ears, but echoed gently inside my skull, as warm and comforting as a long-awaited hug. "Don't stay here anymore. It's too cold. The machines can't keep you here." I looked down at my trembling right hand, bruised and pierced by IV lines. For the first time in 2 years, utilizing the absolute final reserve of my nervous system, I raised my right hand off the bedsheets. "The patient. He's moving his hand on his own." The nurse gasped in disbelief. Dr. Mitchell lunged forward to hold my arm down. "Thomas, don't move, you're going into..." He couldn't touch me. A cushion of bone-chilling air surrounded my arm, repelling his fingers. I reached up, extending my hand toward the silver mist, toward my daughter's pink wool mitten. "I'm sorry," I whispered internally, a silent vow vibrating through every cell of my body. "I'm going to take you all home. This time, I'll drive carefully." My fingers closed around the wool mitten. Warmth radiated outward. A genuine, overwhelming warmth dissolved the tearing agony in my chest, washing away the chemical taste of the tube and the sterile stench of the hospital. Flatline. The cardiac monitor drew a solid, unbroken green line across the screen. Heart rate, 0 BPM. Cardiac arrest. Prepare the defibrillator, 200 joules. Dr. Mitchell's shouted commands grew faint and distant, echoing as if from the bottom of a deep well. I saw my physical body convulse once on the hospital bed under the electric shock, then fall limp, entirely motionless. Leah's mother buried her face in her hands, weeping, while Manny's father stood in silent grief, slowly pulling the white sheet over my pale face. The world of the living closed its doors, and I opened my eyes. I was no longer lying in an ICU bed. I was standing in the middle of a pristine, snow-covered B road. There was no roaring gale, no suffocating gray fog. The night sky above was crystal clear, draped in a galaxy of billions of glittering stars reflecting off the silver snowfields below. My gray Ford Explorer sat idling quietly on the shoulder, its V6 engine humming smoothly, 2 bright yellow headlight beams illuminating a smooth, unbroken road ahead. Standing beside the SUV, 4 children were waiting for me. Craig was laughing, tossing a snowball in the air. Leah raised her mechanical camera, framing the Milky Way above. Manny stood leaning against the side panel, hands in his pockets, giving me a quiet nod. And Lily stood by the passenger door, holding 2 travel tickets, smiling brilliantly at me. "Dad, hurry up, we're going to be late for the trip." I smiled. walked over to the driver's side, and wrapped my hands around the steering wheel. This time, I didn't check tire pressures or worry about fuel levels. I simply sat down, shifted into gear, and guided the car onto the starlit road. On this journey, no one would ever be left behind again. I will continue translating the remaining chapters in my next response. The Weekend Escape, White Out. Chapter 9. The Highway of Souls. The Ford Explorer glided smoothly over the thin, velvet-like drapes of silver snow. The V6 engine no longer strained in exhaustion, it purred a gentle, rhythmic hum that harmonized with the soft crunch of powder beneath 4 winter tires. Outside the windows, the storm was gone. In its place, a deep, star-studded cosmic ribbon stretched across the night sky, reflecting its radiance onto the vast fields of silver below. I placed both hands lightly on the steering wheel, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in years. The crushing weight of guilt and agonizing skull pain had vanished. Lily sat in the passenger seat beside me, her small legs swinging softly to the rhythm of a song she was humming under her breath. "Dad," Lily turned to me, her eyes sparkling with starlight. "This road is so wide. Where does it lead?" "To where we all belong, sweetie," I replied, a serene smile touching my lips. No blizzards, no ravines, and no more late apologies. Yet this highway of souls was not merely a straight path into the afterlife. To truly close the loop, the car needed to make a few final stops along the map of memory, places where lingering ties held the 4 children to the world of the living. Ahead, a gentle curve in the road opened up to a familiar suburban street shrouded in soft silver fog. It was the red brick neighborhood near the retail park where Leah's family lived. The car drifted to a slow stop in front of a modest house with a half-jammed iron gate. Standing in the snow-dusted front yard under the warm amber glow of a streetlight was a woman in a green wool coat, Leah's mother. Leah stepped out of the vehicle, holding her mechanical camera, now fully restored and unbroken. She didn't cry, stepping up to her mother. Leah lifted the lens and softly clicked the shutter. Tack. A warm, golden light flared from the lens. An image of her mother smiling warmly lit up the camera's viewfinder. Leah turned back to us, offered a peaceful wave, and climbed into the car. Behind her, her mother nodded, placing a hand over her heart before gently dissolving into the warm street light. "Mr. Thomas," Leah said softly, clicking the door shut, "I got the best picture of Mom. She won't cry every time she looks into my room anymore." The Explorer rolled forward again. The second stop was a narrow cul-de-sac off Burntwood Road. Craig's house appeared, its front yard filled with half-finished snow castles. His father stood on the porch, a dish towel still draped over his shoulder, his weathered face softening under the starlight. Craig leapt out and ran up the driveway. He didn't talk about Minecraft or viral videos. He simply wrapped his arms around his father in a long, tight embrace. "You did great, Craig," his father whispered, patting his son's back. "We're so proud of you." Craig let go, smiled, and ran back to the car. As we pulled away, his father's figure slowly faded into the quiet night sky. The third stop was a dark, quiet alleyway, Manny's house. The porch light was dark, as it always was. Manny's father, a stoic and silent man, stood leaning against a wooden pillar. His eyes lacked the bitter edge I remembered. Manny unzipped the blue winter jacket I had lent him, stepped down from the car, and handed it back to his father. The man took the coat, then reached out and placed a firm, heavy hand on Manny's shoulder. Father and son looked at each other in complete, unspoken understanding. No words were needed. The love between them had finally found its answer. Manny returned to the rear seat. This time, he didn't stare out the back window to watch for monsters. He leaned back comfortably, hands resting on his lap, looking straight ahead. "Everything is set, Mr. Thomas," Manny said quietly, his voice as clear as a bell. "My dad will be okay." Only one final stop remained. The Ford Explorer climbed the gentle slope of the hill behind town, the place where 4 small graves lay alongside Sarah's. Yet the hill wasn't covered in cold granite tombstones. Standing amidst a field of bioluminescent grass glowing softly beneath the stars was Helen, my wife. She wore her favorite cream-colored dress, resting against an ancient oak tree. She was humming the very song she used to sing while washing dishes, the melody I had struggled for 2 years to remember. It was the melody of coming home. I cut the engine. It didn't stall from the cold, it simply rested after a long journey. Lily, Leah, Craig, Manny, and I stepped out onto the hill. Helen walked over, opening her arms wide to embrace Lily. My 13-year-old daughter buried her face in her mother's shoulder. Tears of pure joy melting on Helen's dress. Helen looked up at me, her eyes shining with warmth. "You did so well, Thomas. You brought the children through the storm. And you brought them home." I stepped forward, taking Helen's hand in mine. Leah, Craig, and Manny stood around us, their bright smiles illuminating the hillside. Behind us, the Ford Explorer and the snowy road gently dissolved into the silver light of an eternal dawn. The whiteout was no longer a force of death or destruction, it had become a pristine white canvas. Wiping away all pain, guilt, and separation, I took a deep, clear breath of warm, pure air. The weekend trip had finally come to an end. Together, we walked toward a place where winter would never reach us again. Chapter 10. Frequency beneath the ice. The serenity of the starlit hill shattered like thin glass. Helen's sweet melody began to warp. Her voice stretched, slowed, and bent into a sickening, metallic screech of radio static. RRRRZZK shush. The bioluminescent field beneath our feet melted into a slurry of gray, slushy ice. The starry sky collapsed, swirling into a terrifying vortex of storm clouds overhead. I panicked, lunging forward to grab Lily and Helen, but my hands passed through empty air. "Dad," Lily's voice echoed from everywhere at once. "You haven't escaped. You never left the car." Slam. A violent collision struck my spine. My eyes snapped open. No stars, no hospital room, no hill. I was sitting behind the wheel of the Ford Explorer. Both of my hands were gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles were white. My forehead was pressed against the steering column. Fresh blood from a gash on my hairline dripping down over my left eye and freezing onto the leather. Outside the windshield was a wall of churning gray snow. The car was idling at a 30-degree angle on the shoulder of the B road. The V6 engine hummed softly, and the dashboard climate control displayed a steady 22 degrees Celsius, 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Everything I had just experienced, the 2024 crash, the 2 years in a coma, the police reports, the urns of ash, and the highway of souls, was a complex hallucination generated by my brain during a 3-minute concussion after striking the steering wheel. I had never driven over the wooden bridge. The car had only skidded off the road a few minutes ago. The 2024 blizzard was happening right now. Mr. Thomas?" Leah's voice called out from the backseat, shaky and weak. "You hit your head on the wheel. Are you okay?" I turned around in sheer disbelief. My world flipped upside down. Craig was curled up in the middle row, holding his headrest pillow. Leah held her camera, eyes wide with fear. Manny sat in the very back, hands flat on his knees, staring out the rear window. And Lily sat right beside me in the passenger seat, holding my arm, her face pale with terror. They were all alive, real, breathing human beings sitting inside the warm cabin. "Dad, you passed out for about 3 minutes." Lily whimpered, tears welling in her eyes. The car skidded into the snowdrift. "Dad, please, can we just turn around? I'm scared." I looked down at my hands. No IV lines, no surgical scars, just fresh blood from a minor forehead cut caused by the sudden skid 3 minutes ago. My subconscious had used those 3 minutes of unconsciousness to construct a 2-year nightmare. A horrifying prophetic vision of what my stubborn hubris would cost if I kept driving forward. My voice was thick, throat dry as dust. "We haven't crossed the wooden bridge yet, right?" "No," Craig sniffled from the back. "We just passed that bent metal sign." I let out a long breath as the crushing tension in my chest dissolved. My practical, stubborn pride, the foolish desire to prove I was the flawless father who could handle any road, vanished into thin air. "Hold on, everyone," I said, wiping the blood from my forehead and pulling the gear lever into reverse. "We're going back to the city. Right now." I pressed the gas pedal. The heavy winter tires spun in the powder, grabbed the asphalt beneath, and pulled the Explorer backward out of the drift. I turned the wheel hard, pulling a complete 180-degree turn on the narrow road. The two bright yellow headlight beams swept across the gray blizzard, pointing back toward the highway we had come from. The storm outside raged furiously, hurling horizontal sheets of snow against the windshield. Visibility was under 10 feet, but my mindset had completely changed. I wasn't driving out of arrogance or blind determination anymore. I was driving with the absolute vigilance of a man who had glimpsed his own grave. "Leah, Craig, buckle your seatbelts tight," I commanded calmly. "Manny, slide into the middle of the seat. Don't lean against the back window." Manny met my eyes in the rearview mirror. For the first time, his gaze held no eerie mystery, just a quiet, human nod as he shifted to the center of the seat. The SUV crawled at under 20 miles per hour along the icy pavement. 10 minutes passed. The road ahead remained a featureless ribbon of white. And then, emerging from the gloom, the bent metal sign appeared once more, its jagged red streak painted down its side. My heart hammered against my ribs. The space around us was warping. The blizzard outside seemed to realize its prey was trying to escape the trap. Clack, clack, clack. The Explorer's dashboard lights flickered erratically. The engine temperature gauge plummeted. The ABS and airbag warning lights flashed in a frantic rhythm. "Mr. Thomas, the trees," Leah stammered, pointing out the side window. Along the shoulders, the withered, snow-laden shrubs began to twist. They were no longer inanimate plants. Under the flickering headlights, hundreds of jagged black branches bent at unnatural angles, creeping over the snowbanks like wooden arms reaching for the car. The storm refused to let us go. The looping road of the whiteout was shifting into overdrive to keep us trapped in its domain. It's coming from behind," Craig screamed, pointing at the center mirror. In the red glow of our taillights, the blizzard parted. The tall, faceless gray silhouette had appeared. It stood less than 20 yards behind the car. Its long arms hung limp, stake-like fingers digging into the snow. It didn't walk, with every flicker of our dashboard lights. The distance between it and our rear bumper closed by 5 yards. 20 yards, 15 yards, 10 yards. A sub-zero chill penetrated the metal frame of the SUV, forming a thin layer of ice across the interior roof. "Dad, what do we do?" Lily cried out, clutching her head as the dashboard alarms blared. I gritted my teeth, gripping the wheel with everything I had. The fear in my chest transformed into pure, burning defiance. "Hold on to something," I shouted. "I'm not letting anything touch this car." I didn't panic and slam the gas blindly. I shifted down into 4 low, locking the 4-wheel drive system for maximum traction. The Explorer's engine roared, its heavy tires tearing through the ice as we accelerated away from the monstrosity. But just as we cleared the bent metal sign for the second time, a massive dark shape crashed down from the embankment directly ahead of us. An ancient pine tree, snapped by the gale, fell flat across the 2-lane B road, its trunk nearly a meter thick, blocking our escape entirely. The path back to the city was cut off. The foolish pride of a man trying to prove himself a flawless father by managing infrastructure, it all collapsed into dust. Those 3 minutes of unconsciousness hadn't been a simple blackout. They were a brutal, merciful warning from my subconscious, exposing the horrific end waiting for us if I stubbornly pressed onward under the guise of bravery. "Dad?" Lily gripped my arm tighter, staring at the blood dripping down my forehead in absolute terror. "Can you hear me?" I turned to my 13-year-old daughter. This time, I wasn't looking at her through a distorted lens of hallucination, nor in an ICU room or on a haunted hillside. She was right in front of me, real, breathing, and alive. I pulled Lily into my arms, hugging her tightly. The warmth of her small body radiating through her winter jacket sent a shudder through my chest. "I hear you, sweetie, I hear you," I whispered, my voice thick with tears that mixed with the fresh blood on my forehead. "We're not going to Blackwood. We are not crossing that wooden bridge." "What?" Craig blurted out from the middle row, his voice a mix of confusion and overwhelming relief. "We're going back?" "Yes." I released Lily, wiped the blood from my brow, and pulled the gear lever into reverse. We are heading back to the city. Right now. I pressed the gas. The winter tires spun in the snowbank, bit down, and pulled the Explorer backward onto the B road. I cranked the wheel hard, executing a full 180-degree turn. The two bright yellow headlight beams swept across the gray blizzard, pointing back toward the direction we had come from. The storm outside raged furiously, hurling horizontal sheets of snow against the glass like thrown buckets of sand. Visibility remained under 10 feet, but my mindset had completely shifted. I was no longer driving out of pride or blind stubbornness. I was driving with the razor-sharp vigilance of a man who had glimpsed his own grave. "Leah, Craig, buckle your seatbelts tight," I commanded calmly. "Manny, slide into the middle of the seat. Don't lean against the rear glass." Manny, the silent boy in the back, met my eyes in the rearview mirror. For the first time, his dark eyes held no eerie mystery. Only a quiet, human nod as he shifted into the center of the seat. The SUV crawled over the icy pavement at under 20 miles per hour. 10 minutes passed. The B road ahead remained an unbroken ribbon of white. And then, emerging from the gloom, the bent metal sign appeared once more, its jagged red streak painted down its side. My heart hammered against my ribs. The space around us was warping. The blizzard outside seemed to realize its prey was trying to escape the trap. Clack, clack, clack. The Explorer's dashboard lights flickered erratically. The engine temperature gauge plummeted. The ABS and airbag warning lights flashed in a frantic, terrifying rhythm. "Mr. Thomas, the trees," Leah stammered, pointing out the side window. Along the shoulders, the withered, snow-laden shrubs began to twist. They were no longer inanimate plants. Under the flickering headlights, hundreds of black branches bent at unnatural angles, creeping over the snowbanks like wooden arms reaching for the car. The storm refused to let us go. The looping road was shifting into overdrive to keep us trapped in its domain. It's coming from behind," Craig screamed, pointing at the center mirror. In the red glow of our taillights, the blizzard parted. The tall, faceless gray silhouette had appeared. It stood less than 20 yards behind the car. Its long arms hung limp, stake-like fingers digging into the snow. It didn't walk, with every flicker of our dashboard lights. The distance between it and our rear bumper closed by 5 yards. 20 yards, 15 yards, 10 yards. A sub-zero chill penetrated the metal frame of the SUV, forming a thin layer of ice across the interior roof. "Dad, what do we do?" Lily cried out, clutching her head as the dashboard alarms blared. I gritted my teeth, gripping the wheel with everything I had. The fear in my chest transformed into pure, burning defiance. "Hold on to something," I shouted. "I'm not letting anything touch this car." I didn't panic and slam the gas blindly. I shifted down into 4 low, locking the 4-wheel drive system for maximum traction. The Explorer's engine roared, its heavy tires tearing through the ice as we accelerated away from the monstrosity. But just as we cleared the bent metal sign for the second time, a massive dark shape crashed down from the embankment directly ahead of us. An ancient pine tree, snapped by the gale, fell flat across the 2-lane B road, its trunk nearly a meter thick, blocking our escape entirely. Chapter 12. Fire in the Whiteout. The Ford Explorer skidded violently on the ice, coming to a dead stop less than 6 feet from the massive, fallen pine trunk. Snow sprayed up over the hood as hot steam hissed off the radiator grid. Trapped, the road ahead was blocked by a fallen giant. Behind us, the towering shadow closed in. The sub-zero chill radiating from the figure behind us spread rapidly. The thin sheet of frost coating the rear window cracked with sharp tack-tack sounds. Tiny, gray ice crystals crept across the interior headliner like thousands of frozen spiders spinning a web. "Dad, it's right behind the car," Lily screamed, clutching her head. It's touching the glass," Craig wept, burying his face in Leah's shoulder. I glanced into the rearview mirror. The smooth, featureless slab of skin was pressed flat against the rear window. Its long, needle-like fingers reached out, tapping lightly against the metal frame. With every touch, the dashboard lights flickered violently and alarm chimes rang through the cabin. Self-preservation urged me to freeze, to surrender. But the horrifying visions from my 3-minute blackout flashed through my mind. The urns of ash. The crushed wreckage beneath 10 feet of snow. And Lily's lifeless eyes. No, never again. I was Thomas. I might not know how to talk about feelings. But I was the man who brought the tools. I was the one who prepared for the worst. Close your eyes. Cover your heads with blankets. I barked with absolute authority. I reached beneath the driver's seat, snatching 2 heavy cylinders from my emergency kit, industrial magnesium road flares. Mr. Thomas, what are you doing? Leah gasped from under her coat. I'm going to show this thing what human heat feels like. I didn't open the door. Doing so would invite the lethal cold inside. I powered the driver's window down just 2 inches. A freezing gale carrying sharp ice granules blasted through the gap, stinging my face. I pulled the safety cap off the flare and yanked the striker cord. Whoosh! A blinding, intense crimson glare erupted from the tip of the flare. Magnesium flares burn at over 2000 degrees Celsius. The brilliant red light and intense thermal burst instantly tore through the darkness inside the cabin, filling the space with thick pinkish smoke and searing heat. Reaching through the narrow gap in the window, I threw the sputtering, white-hot flare directly into the snowbank at the feet of the gray figure behind the rear bumper. The snowy world exploded in violent red light. The tall silhouette recoiled violently. The entity of the whiteout existed in the quiet, freezing twilight between life and death. The 2000-degree chemical fire and blinding red glare hit its pale form like concentrated acid on an open wound. It let out a sound, a terrifying, metallic shriek like grinding steel against frozen stone that vibrated through the frame of the car. It retreated, staggering backward into the deep shadows of the tree line where the red light couldn't reach it. You did it, Dad, Lily cried out. Not yet. I shoved the shifter into gear, my eyes scanning the terrain off the right shoulder. The main B road was blocked by the pine trunk, but off to the right, hidden behind withered brush, lay a narrow, rough path, an old logging trail used by lumber crews decades ago. It wasn't on any digital map, but it wound downhill back toward the valley floor. Hold on tight, I yelled. I kept the transmission locked in 4 low and floored the gas. The V6 engine roared with furious power. The winter tires bit into the deep drift, climbing over the ditch and plowing straight through the dry, frozen brush. Crack, crunch. Dry branches snapped against the undercarriage as the heavy SUV forced its way onto the rough logging path, bypassing the fallen tree entirely. The vehicle bounced wildly over rocks and hidden stumps, but it kept moving. Behind us, the crimson glare of the flare faded into the distance. 10 minutes, 7 minutes, 4 minutes. The steep descent slowed our momentum, but the blinding storm began to thin out. And then, through the clear bottom section of the windshield, the warm, golden glow of highway streetlights appeared in the valley below. The logging trail emptied directly onto Interstate 91, where orange flashing state snowplows were methodically clearing the lanes. The highway. We see the highway, Craig cheered, pounding his hands against his seat in sheer joy. Leah burst into tears, hugging Craig tightly. Manny leaned back, his shoulders finally dropping in relief. I slowed the Explorer down, rolling onto the clear, salted asphalt of the interstate, and pulled over onto the shoulder. I set the parking brake, slumped forward over the steering wheel, and let my shoulders heave with ragged gasps. We had beaten the storm. Everyone was alive. I wiped the blood and tears from my face, turning on the car radio. A warm, human voice broadcasted over the speaker. Local weather update at 9 p.m. The class red blizzard over Blackwood Mountain is beginning to weaken. Main transit routes are being cleared. I looked back through the window. Far behind us, Blackwood Mountain stood dark and silent beneath the clouds. The whiteout remained up there, waiting for the next careless traveler. But tonight, it had been forced to surrender its prey. Chapter 13. The window at the rest stop. The Ford Explorer rolled off Interstate 91 and pulled into the snow-cleared parking lot of the North Star Diner, a 24/7 rest stop nestled along the highway corridor. The vibrant red and green neon signs cast a comforting, warm glow across the wet asphalt. The presence of human civilization, rumbling diesel trucks idling in the lot, bright street lamps, and the rich smell of fried food washed over us like a hot bath. I cut the engine. This time, the silence was peaceful. "Everyone out," I said, my voice hoarse from smoke and cold. "Let's get something hot to eat and call your parents." We stepped out onto the salted walkway, the crunch of grit beneath our boots feeling wonderfully grounded. I pushed open the heavy glass door of the diner. A wave of heat, carrying the aromas of roasted coffee, buttered pancakes, and background country music, instantly wrapped around us. We took a booth in the back corner beside a large glass window facing the parking lot. An older waitress in a checkered apron hurried over, her eyes widening at the dried blood on my forehead and the disheveled kids. "Goodness, did you folks just come off the mountain route?" "Yes," I smiled faintly. "Could we get 5 bowls of hot beef stew, 5 hot chocolates, and a stack of pancakes?" "Coming right up, dear. There's a landline phone near the restrooms if you need it." I walked over to the wall-mounted payphone. My cell phone had regained service, but the signal was weak. The landline was safer. First, I called Leah's mother. She answered on the very first ring, her voice frantic. "Police department? I'm calling about." "It's me, Mrs. Miller. It's Thomas," I interrupted quickly. "Leah is with me. Everyone is completely safe. We're at the North Star Diner on I-91. A long silence followed, broken by her sobbing relief. "Oh, thank God, thank God." The news said a car crashed on the Blackwood Bridge. I thought. "We turned back before the bridge," I said firmly. "I'll have her home in an hour." Craig's parents reacted with the same tearful gratitude. Finally, I dialed Manny's home number. It rang 3 times before his father answered. His voice was low, flat, and chillingly calm. "Hello. Manny is safe, Mr. Santos," I said. "He's eating hot stew with us at the diner." "I know," Mr. Santos whispered through the line. I paused, my hand tightening on the receiver. You know? Manny isn't the first in our family to drive up that mountain." "Thomas," his father said softly, a statement that chilled my blood. 20 years ago, my older brother drove up Blackwood Mountain during a storm. Did you see it?" I remained silent. "If you saw it, and brought the kids back," Mr. Santos continued, his voice laced with an eerie respect, "then you're the first one who ever did. Thank you, Thomas. Bring my boy home." He hung up. I stood by the payphone, stunned. The legends of the whiteout weren't just campfire tales. The disappearances over the decades were real, and Manny's family had paid a tragic toll to that mountain years ago. I walked back to the booth. The waitress had served steaming bowls of stew and hot mugs of cocoa. Craig was eating hungrily. Leah was wiping down her camera lens, and Manny sat quietly sipping his cocoa. Lily looked out the window at the parking lot. "Dad, does your forehead still hurt?" "I'm fine, sweetie," I smiled, looking at my reflection in the diner glass. Under the bright neon lights, the cut on my forehead had stopped bleeding, but around my eyebrows, tiny, pale gray ice crystals clung to my skin. Despite the cozy warmth of the diner, those specks of frost showed no sign of melting. They were the mark of the whiteout, a permanent scar left on those who faced it and lived. And as I stared at my reflection, 5 frost-white handprints slowly materialized on the outside of the glass, pressing against the exact spots where our reflections rested. The wall clock behind the counter abruptly stopped ticking at 9:45 p.m. The second hand of the brass wall clock froze. The background country music warped into a low, droning hum. I stepped back from the window. Around us, the diner began to distort. The waitress pouring coffee for a trucker remained frozen in place, the brown liquid flowing from the pot without ever filling the mug. The idling semi-trucks outside stood dead silent, their exhaust plumes frozen into static, sculpted clouds in the air. The rest stop wasn't real. It was a lingering spatial buffer, a phantom sanctuary created by our fading adrenaline before the storm dragged us back. "Mr. Thomas," Manny spoke, dropping his spoon, "it's pulling the diner in." "What do you mean, Manny?" I pulled Lily and Leah behind me. "This diner burned down in the 1940 storm," Manny said calmly. "It's part of the mountain's memory. If we stay inside, We'll be trapped in 1940. Outside, the neon signs flickered out. The heat inside evaporated instantly, the hot beef stew turned into thick gray grease. "Run! To the car!" I yelled, grabbing the kids. We burst through the glass doors. The parking lot was no longer filled with modern trucks, but rusted, snow-buried wrecks from decades past. Standing in the middle of the lot, right beside my Ford Explorer, was the tall, faceless gray silhouette. Its stake-like fingers pointed directly at us. It was no longer lurking, it was standing ground, ready to claim its debt. "Get in," I shouted, unlocking the doors. The kids scrambled inside. I slammed into the driver's seat, jammed the key into the ignition, and turned it. The V6 engine roared to life with a fierce growl. The gray figure extended its impossibly long arms, stepping directly in front of our hood to block the path. I didn't brake, I didn't hesitate. I slammed my foot onto the gas pedal, driving the 2-ton Explorer straight into the center of the entity. Boom! A shockwave of cold air and exploding frost shattered against the windshield. The vehicle tore through the gray mist, breaking through the spatial boundary with a deafening roar. We burst out onto the real Interstate 91. Flashing red and blue lights illuminated the highway ahead. Real state trooper cruisers and snowplows were lined up at the county border. We had crossed back into the real world. State troopers rushed over as I pulled the Explorer to a halt beside a massive snowplow. "Good Lord, did you just come off the Blackwood Pass?" a trooper yelled. Looking at my bleeding forehead and the terrified kids inside. "That road was closed hours ago." I didn't answer. I just slumped over the wheel and let out a breathless, relieved laugh. The next morning, at Burlington General Hospital, warm morning sunlight streamed through the window of the emergency room. My forehead had been stitched up neatly with 8 sutures. Leah's mother was holding her daughter, weeping softly on the sofa. Craig's parents were listening intently as Craig excitedly recounted how Mr. Thomas used a magnesium flare to fight off the storm. At the door, Manny's father stood quietly. Manny walked over, and his father reached out, placing a firm, loving hand on his shoulder. Manny smiled, a genuine, warm smile. After the other families left, only Lily and I remained. "Dad," Lily said softly, sitting on the edge of my bed. "Did you remember everything last night?" I remembered, Lily, I whispered, holding her hand. I remembered how arrogant I was. I thought fixing things meant being a good dad. I forgot how to just listen to you. Lily leaned her head against my chest. "I missed you, Dad. I'm here now, sweetie. I'm not hiding anymore." 1 week later, the sky over Blackwood Mountain was crisp and blue. Lily and I stood before Helen's grave on the quiet hillside behind town. I placed a bouquet of white lilies onto her stone. "We made it, Helen," I whispered to the quiet breeze. "I brought our daughter home." Lily slipped her hand into mine. "Let's go home, Dad." We walked back down to the Ford Explorer. The scratches on its paint remained, but its engine purred smoothly, ready for the road ahead. Before getting in, I looked back at Blackwood Mountain one last time. Deep within the distant pine forests, a faint gray mist lingered. The whiteout was still there, waiting for the careless, but it would never touch us again. Because even in the darkest, coldest winter, the light of love and connection will always find the way home.